President Buhari kicks off campaign for 2019 presidential election with slogan Next Level. Ekiti former Governor Ayodele Fayoshe's trial begins today in an alleged 2.2 billion naira fraud. In international news, Turkish official says Khashoggi's body parts may have been taken out of the country. And in sports, Super Eagles arrive in Asaba after clinching 2019 AFCON ticket.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has cleared the way for campaigns to start on Sunday for next year's presidential elections. Without wasting a moment, President Muhammadu Buhari has kick-started his campaign and has inaugurated the campaign manual for his re-election. The president spoke at the launch of the campaign manual Next Level document in Abuja over the weekend and said the call had been imperative in view of the commencement of campaigns by political parties across the country. President Buhari used the platform to solicit for a peaceful campaign across board. The president also called on all Nigerians to join his administration on what he called this journey to the next level of a prosperous, strong and stable Nigeria.
We are certain that these past few years have put us in good stead to press on the next level of building an even stronger nation for our people. Grand-scale corruption perpetrated at the highest level of government is now a thing of the past. The nation's wealth is now being invested in capital projects to expand infrastructure and connect people, goods, and opportunities by rail, road, and air. Through the National Social Investment Program, we are providing direct support to over 13 million Nigerians.
He said in the next 4 years, he would ensure the creation of 15 million jobs across the nation's socio-economic sectors.
The achievements and projections I have enumerated above are just a summary of what we have done and what we intend to do in our next term. If Nigerians graciously give us a second term mandate, join us on this journey to the next level of a prosperous, strong, and stable Nigeria.
Senate President Bukola Saraki, Governor Abdul Fattah Ahmed and the People's Democratic Party have reacted to the results of Saturday's by-election in Kwara State won by the candidates of the All Progressives Congress. The PDP described the outcome of the election as daylight robbery and that it did not reflect the will of the people as its members were harassed and intimidated during the poll. The three parties alleged that the process was skewed against their party. APC candidate Rahim Olawi was declared winner of the federal constituency by-election held across the 4 councils in Kwara State on Saturday. Addressing a press conference in Ilorin on Sunday, State PDP Chairman Engineer Kola Shitu further described the election as a charade and direct assault on the nation's democracy. Senator Buruji Kashamu has emerged as People's Democratic Party's candidate for the Ogun State governorship election following the withdrawal of Adeleke Shitu. Shitu, who emerged as the PDP governorship candidate in the primary conducted by the Bayo Dayo faction of the party in the state, was said to have voluntarily withdrawn from the race, paving the way for Kashamu, who represents Ogun East in the Senate. Kashamu's media aide, Austin Oniyoko, said the leaders of the party prevailed on Kashamu to replace Shitu to brighten the party's chances of winning the governorship poll. Meanwhile, the Unity Party of Nigeria has adopted the governorship candidate of the Socio-Democratic Party, Otumba Rotimi Opasheda, as candidate for the election in the state. Hearing begins today in the trial of Ekiti former Governor Ayodele Fayoshe, who has been charged by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission with an alleged 2 billion naira fraud. The EFCC arraigned Fayoshe alongside a firm, Spotless Limited, in October at the Federal High Court in Lagos, 6 days after the expiration of his term as governor. The 11 counts pressed against him bordered on criminal breach of trust, theft and money laundering. Fayose and Sportless Limited have pleaded not guilty to the charges. Former Attorney General of the Federation, Justice Mojisola Olatoregu, granted Fayose a 50 million naira bail. Trial commences today. The judge says the case would be heard on a day-to-day basis in line with the provisions of the 2015 Administration of Criminal Justice Act. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project (SERAP) has sent an open letter to Mahmoud Yakubu, Chairman Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), demanding a thorough and effective investigation of allegations the Senate President Bukola Saraki spent between 200 million naira and 400 million naira in every state except the 6 southwest states to influence the outcome of the 2015 All Progressives Congress. The organization also urged INEC to investigate the sources of other cases of apparently unexplained campaign financing and contributions for the 2015 elections by politicians and supporters of the APC and the PDP. SERAP says campaign financing, such as the spending allegedly disclosed by the Senate President, undermines public trust and confidence in politicians and poses serious corruption risk, as it can blur the line between state and party politics, encourage the use of national resources to fund and influence elections. Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria and the Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria are lamenting the delay in the payment of the outstanding subsidy debt owed by the federal government. The marketers are appealing to the government to facilitate the payment of the debt by the agencies saddled with the responsibility. Moman's Executive Secretary Clement Isong urged the federal government to hasten the payment of the subsidy arrears, saying the continued non-payment had severely impacted their working capital and their ability to pay bank loans and their service providers. He says as at August, a debt of 130 billion naira was owed to Moman members. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency says it has seized 241 million tramadol tablets in 11 containers weighing 118 metric tons. The agency's head of public affairs, Jonah Achema, said the seizure was made at the Apapa port in Lagos. The agency had earlier uncovered 340 million tramadol tablets in 12 containers last week at the port. The containers had been on the watch list of the NDLEA since November last year. The agency says it would not relax its efforts until the country was free from drug abuse and consumption. A wildlife conservative initiative, Green Fingers, has called for a ban on single-use plastics, saying that they play an adverse role in the degradation of the environment. Green Fingers founder Chinedu Mogbo says Nigerians needed to be more conscious of their environment to avoid huge unpleasant consequences. Mogbo spoke at the 6th edition of Green Fingers Day and Science Fair, where youth showcased their inventions and also featured debate competition and a fashion show with participants dressed in clothes made from plastics. Founder of FABE International Foundation, Temitope Okunu, says it would take at least 5 years for Nigeria to have an effective waste control system if the process was started now. She says banning single-use plastics will lead to more creativity and strengthen country's startups. Coming up, African stories. More than 40 killed in attack on refugee base in Central African Republic. Pope prays for victims of CAR massacre. And later, Turkish officials say Khashoggi body parts may have been taken out of the country.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and African Stories. Pope Francis has prayed on Sunday for peace in the war-ravaged Central African Republic, where 2 priests were killed in ethnic unrest last week. More than 40 persons died and dozens wounded in an attack on a Catholic mission, sheltering 20,000 refugees in Alinda, a town 300 kilometers east of the capital Bangui, on Thursday. The United Nations says thousands of people were forced to flee when the mission was set on fire. UN Humanitarian Coordinator in Central African Republic, Najat Rojdi, said in a statement, the vicious cycle of repeated attacks against civilians is unacceptable. Egypt says it would hold talks with Ethiopia to iron out differences over an Ethiopian dam and the River Nile that Cairo sees as a threat to its water supply. The 2 countries in Sudan have held a series of meetings over the $4 billion hydroelectric Grand Renaissance Dam that have yet to reach a deal on managing flows and other issues. Egypt fears the scheme will restrict the waters coming down from Ethiopia's highlands through the deserts of Sudan to its fields and reservoirs. Ethiopia, which wants to become Africa's biggest power exporter, says it will have no such impact. Egypt's Prime Minister Mustafa Maghdouli says he and Ethiopian counterpart Abiy Ahmed have agreed to start bilateral discussions in the next 2 weeks, an outstanding point that on which an agreement is needed. A World Bank senior official said on Sunday the bank will work with Tanzania to redesign a $300 million education project, days after the lender said it had cancelled plans for the project because of the country's controversial policies on pregnant schoolgirls. We reported last week that the World Bank had not presented the education program to its board for financing approval because of Tanzanian President John Magufuli's 57-year-old ban on pregnant girls from attending state primary and secondary schools. He reaffirmed the ban last year, saying schoolgirls who become pregnant must be expelled from government schools and not allowed to return. Meanwhile, World Bank Vice President for Africa, Hafiz Ghanem, told reporters on Sunday the lender had agreed with authorities to find ways for pregnant girls who are forced to leave school to still have access to education, ways for the girls to return to school. The $300 million loan project includes the construction of classrooms, hostels, laboratories, staff houses, and teaching facilities. The African Union has warned Gabon to respect constitutional order after a high court intervened in a crisis surrounding the country's hospitalized president, Ali Bongo. Gabon's constitutional court modified the country's basic law last week to address Bongo's temporary incapacity by allowing the vice president to preside over cabinet meetings. A statement by AU Commission Chair Musa Faki Mahamat says the 55-member group of African nations is strongly committed to the full respect of constitutional order in the country. He said the AU will deploy a fact-finding mission to Libreville. 59-year-old Bongo has been hospitalized in Saudi Arabia since last month, the president's office first said. He only suffered from severe fatigue but admitted last week that he had undergone surgery. Meanwhile, African Union leaders finally agreed on Sunday on measures to compel member states to pay their dues. This is part of a drive to reform a body often seen as toothless and donor-dependent. Heads of state and ministers had gathered at the body's headquarters in Addis Ababa for what was seen as a last-ditch attempt to push through reforms that have been mulled for nearly 2 years. The AU in 2016 charged its chairperson and Rwandan President Paul Kagame with getting reforms passed, but observers have said time is running out because Egypt, which is set to assume the chairmanship, is thought to oppose aspects of the agenda. In proposals unveiled last year, Kagame envisioned a more narrowly focused AU headed by a powerful commission whose bills were covered by its 55 member states rather than foreign donors. Although not all its reforms were passed, Kagame welcomed the progress made at the two-day summit. Efforts to fight an Ebola outbreak in Democratic Republic of Congo's conflict-ridden eastern Benin region were suspended on Saturday after clashes a few meters from a local emergency center and the hotels of several response teams. Also on Saturday, the World Health Organization, WHO, said 16 of the staff members in Benin had been temporarily evacuated after a shell hit the building in which they were staying. WHO's coordinator for Ebola response operation in Benin, Mark Ayal, said no one was injured. He also said it was not known whether the shell came from the ADF or MONUSCO forces. Health Minister Dr. Olilunga Kalenga said the actions were deplorable and that this act of violence and outbreak remains dangerous, particularly in Benin. Meanwhile, a DRC Army spokesperson said rebels have burned homes and a car in a neighborhood in the east of the country where UN peacekeeping forces have a base. The attack late on Friday into Saturday comes days after 8 UN peacekeepers and at least 12 Congolese soldiers were killed in a joint military operation against Allied Democratic Forces rebels in their Kididiwe stronghold near Benin. Two sources said mortar bombs were fired at a UN peacekeeping base and gunfire could be heard on Friday in the Democratic Republic of Congo's eastern city of Benin, an area which has seen a surge in fighting with rebel groups. Congolese army spokesman Mark Hakzuke said the military was monitoring the situation in Benin and it imposed a curfew on parts of the city. When we return, international news. Turkish officials say Khashoggi body parts may have been taken out of the country. And later, sports, Super Eagles arrive in Asaba after clinching 2019 AFCON tickets.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down, keep walking to the left. Yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In news around the world, Iran has said it is determined to defy U.S. sanctions. It says a part of a psychological war launched by Washington against it. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said the sanctions would fail. He also added on Monday that his country will continue to export its oil. He boasted that the U.S. had been unable to stop Iran's oil exports and vouched Iran will continue to export. The country is also hoping that the other major signatories to the 2015 nuclear deal will save the agreement despite the withdrawal of the United States. The European Union has been trying to establish a special purpose vehicle for non-dollar trade with Iran to save the deal. It was on this premise that most sanctions were lifted in 2016 in exchange for Tehran curbing its nuclear program. Iran says it will exit the deal if its economic benefits are not preserved. There was a new ugly twist to the Jamal Khashoggi murder story today. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar is quoted by CNN Turk as saying at an international conference in Canada that Khashoggi killers may have smuggled his disembodied body out of Turkey in a luggage. Akar said they would not have been detected because of the diplomatic immunity. Khashoggi was a U.S. resident and was killed in a Saudi consulate in Istanbul in early October. His mother has sparked global condemnation of the kingdom and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Over the weekend, the CIA released an assessment saying the Crown Prince ordered the murder. U.S. President Donald Trump has called that assessment premature. He said a complete report on the case will reach him on Tuesday. British Prime Minister Theresa May has an uphill battle on her hands on the draft Brexit deal she has secured with EU negotiators. She will now seek to win support from business leaders on Monday as she faces a revolt by dissenters in her own party who are gunning for a leadership challenge. May has had a tumultuous few days since unveiling her deal on Wednesday last week, with several ministers, including her Brexit minister, resigning and some of her own ministers or members of parliament seeking to oust her. May has vowed to continue her fight. She said if she stopped, the country will risk a delayed Britain's exit from the EU. A summit to discuss the deal will be held by the EU in late November. More than 2 years after the United Kingdom voted to leave the EU, it is still unclear how, on what terms, or even if it will leave, as planned on March the 29th, 2019, with business leaders fearful that Britain could leave the bloc with no deal in place. Stories on the wildfires coming out of California have been gut-wrenching. So far, the campfire erupted 10 days ago in Butte County. At least 80 persons have died and more than 1,000 are missing. The wildfires have also destroyed almost 10,000 homes and touched an area the size of Chicago. While hundreds of families wait in agony to learn the fate of missing loved ones, officials gave a dire forecast on the fate of California's campfire. They said it's not even halfway done burning yet. Cal Fire, the state's Forestry and Fire Protection Agency, says it may not be fully contained until the end of November. Meanwhile, displaced residents are in limbo. Many are in Chico, Butte County's most popular city, about 15 miles from the town of Paradise, has been literally burnt to the ground. The campfire is already deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California history. There are at least 1,000 persons whom authorities have been unable to locate. The federal death toll could keep rising. An Argentine submarine that went missing almost exactly 1 year ago has been found at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. The Argentine Navy and Defense Ministry confirmed late Friday evening that the remains of the Aracen Job submarine had been located in the South Atlantic Ocean at a depth of about 800 meters, about 700 miles due east of the Argentine city of Puerto Madryn. The families of the 44 crew members who perished in the accident were summoned to Mar del Plata Naval Base this weekend to be officially informed. Officials in the South American country lost radio contact with the San Juan in mid-November last year and were unable to locate the missing sub in following days and months. President Mauricio had declared a period of mourning starting on Saturday. The ship was taking part in a military exercise at the time it lost contact and had just 7 days worth of oxygen on board. Up next, sport. Super Eagles arrive in Asaba after clinching 2019 AFCON tickets. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
If you know it go internet or follow for Twitter, you know it's not photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Go get Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah.
to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. Super Eagles players are now in Delta State after picking up the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations ticket in the qualifying match against South Africa's Bafana Bafana. The three-time African champions forced a 1-1 draw at the FNB Stadium on Saturday. Nigeria will appear at the African showpiece after missing out on the last two editions of the championships. Nigeria top Group E with 10 points from 5 games. They will now shift focus to Tuesday's international friendly against Uganda Cranes at the Stephen Keshe Stadium in Asaba. The Black Queens of Ghana started their 2018 Women's Africa Cup of Nations campaign with a 1-0 victory over Algeria on Saturday at the Accra Sports Stadium. The female senior national team of Ghana started the Group A match on a good note as they managed to snatch the goal before the quarter-hour mark. The Black Queens grabbed the opener with a brilliant finish in the 12th minute through right-back Gladys Amphobia. Goalkeeper Patricia Martin made 2 brilliant saves on the stroke of halftime to prevent the Algerians from leveling the scores. Congratulations to the Super Eagles and the Black Queens. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.